So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Janine Boire, our Executive Director Extraordinaire, who's going to start the program and welcome all of you again. So I'm turning it over to Janine.
Welcome. We are so delighted that you are here with us this afternoon. I'd like to begin our time together in this historic period by addressing where the Marine Science Center stands regarding the social unrest. Bigotry and hatred divides and undermines the very fabric of our civil society and stymies democracy and progress towards a healthy, sustainable future for all people and our planet. Inspired by the resurgence of the worldwide movement for diversity, equity, and inclusion, the Marine Science Center renews its commitment to doing the internal work as an all-white organization in a nearly all-white field, to address our own unconscious biases, to take a more active role in dismantling the systemic injustices of oppressed people. One element of this initiative is that we'll begin each of our public meetings with a recognition of the people who welcomed our ancestors to this beautiful place, the S'Klallam people. The area that we know as Port Townsend is the ancestral territory of the S'Klallam people, the strong people. The name S'Klallam of the S'Klallam village at Port Townsend was called Katai. We take a moment to acknowledge and respect the land that was once belonged to the S'Klallam people. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And we are going to start off with a poll to find out who is here. We are honored that you've taken this afternoon to be here with us. And so now you see on your screens a poll and we're asking you who you are. If you're a member, if you're relatively new, if you're one of the staff or AmeriCorps. And so go ahead and just fill out all that apply so you can choose more than one answer. And as you are voting, Gabrielle is seeing the tally, and we'll be sharing that with you in just a minute. It really is wonderful to have us all together, and I'd like to take this moment to honor the board, the staff, AmeriCorps, and all our volunteers. The board, the staff, AmeriCorps have been not taking time off at all. They've actually doubled down and are working harder than ever. The board is meeting at least twice a month. We've got 3 meetings this week alone. The staff are digging deeply into reopening plans, and you'll be hearing more about that towards the end of the meeting. If people have questions. Oh, and there we are. So 77% of us here today are members, and this is great. This is great. And we have a few new faces. That's great. A couple of new people. So, and I think that we might have everyone is a friend of the Marine Science Center. So thank you all for doing that. We'll be doing some of those polls throughout the meeting. To give you a picture of what to expect for the next hour or so, we are going to begin with the introduction of our annual report. Then we'll leap to one of the featured pieces of the annual report, the Abalone Project, and we'll take a little bit deeper dive. We'll cut to Allie, who's currently in the aquarium. From there, we'll go to Marley, who will talk about the Octopus Learning Project and her experiences working with Eleonora, and she has a treat for you, just like we had projects for and treats for Eleonora. And then we'll cut to Betsy Carlson and AmeriCorps Mandy Johnson, who will talk about the Elephant Seal in the Classroom project and how it emerged in 2019. Finally, we'll wrap up and stand for questions. So along those lines, throughout the meeting, we really encourage you to put into the chat section of your screen, which can be found if you haven't already put it, have your sidebar up. If you go to the bottom of your screen and look and hover over that bottom toolbar, you'll see that there is a chat function. You can open up that and you can put your questions in there, and we'll be fielding questions from that chat box. So if you need help with that, just ping Gabrielle and she can help you with that. So the main function of any annual meeting is to report the previous year to all of you, our supporters and donors, and release the annual report from the previous year. And I couldn't be more excited about not only the content, because the content's always good, because what we're doing is really powerful, but this year's format is brilliant. Our own Brian Kay, who's a gifted, talented artist, has created a beautiful, dynamic digital annual report that he's going to pull up now. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Can everyone see it?
Not quite yet.
Okay. All right, 1 second.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Brilliant. So as you scan through this digital annual report, you'll see the stories and the graphs that bring the Marine Science Center really to life. The camp programs, and it tells a powerful story of the work that we did together in 2019. We'll have it posted on the website, but in the chat function, Liesl will be sharing a link to the report that you can actually peruse at your leisure. But this afternoon, we'll just hit on a few of the highlights in the next hour or so. The main message of the annual report is that in 2019, the Marine Science Center continued its year-over-year steady growth and is solidly on track with our audacious goal that was decided on in the 2015 strategic plan to double our impact by 2025. This strength is really rooted in the long-term commitment of all of you, our community. Is particularly evidenced by generous bequests last year, each from a volunteer who had volunteered decades ago. One such bequest was made by a couple who actually met while volunteering at the Marine Science Center, Peggy and Joe Ryan. The bequest totaled about $200,000, and we are deeply honored. It really is setting us on a powerful trajectory for our future capital planning. Another message throughout the annual report is the power of our 3 core competencies and how they reinforce each other, providing an institutional strength in setting the Marine Science Center apart and just making us a place of distinction. A great example of this was the Abalone Project, which about 5 years ago started as a citizen science initiative with the Puget Sound Restoration Fund. That led then to becoming a featured exhibit in the Conservation Lab. And as of this year, 2020, we have a contract with Puget Sound Restoration Fund to create messaging and exhibit concepts for each of their new nursery sites all around Puget Sound that were all inspired by the pilot project that they did with us. And now it's time for a quiz. Is everybody ready? There it is. For each of the highlights, we're going to be doing one of these little polls. So to keep you engaged and awake out there. So this is all about the pinto abalone and why it has become functionally extinct. There is, choose only one answer and look carefully and closely. There might be a trick in this one. And in just a few minutes, we will be cutting to Allie, who's in the aquarium, and she can introduce you to our current cohort of abalone. Huh. Ooh, let's see. A lot of us guessed all of the above. Nobody guessed tasty flesh. That's interesting. And answers A and C. Actually, D is the correct answer. And Allie, what have you got for us? And why is that the case? So off to Allie.
Hi. Yeah, on the poll question, we never had an established commercial fishery here in Washington State. And so poaching was happening on a near commercial level, but there was never actually a commercial fishery, just a recreational fishery. But I am here in the aquarium just to prove it to you. I'm gonna give you a little glance around in case you haven't been in or seen it in a while. Everybody here is doing really well. We've got so many fun animals. Really excited to be able to share them with people in the future. And right now, I'm over here at our adult abalone exhibit. There, you can see a couple of them in there, around in the back. And then over here on the side, you can really get a good look at them. So these guys came from one of the original abalone projects that we did with PSRF. They're all captive bred. None of these are wild caught abalone. You can see them munching on their kelp there. And these are full-grown abalone. We do get spawning in our tanks here. And the deeper reason why abalone are in short abundance in the wild is because they are broadcast spawners, meaning they just throw it all out there and hope that the gametes meet up. And when they're at a lower density, then the gametes don't meet up, and so you don't end up with a lot of abalone. And unfortunately, in '94, when they decided to completely shut down the recreational fisheries and then really cut down on the poaching, they had already fallen below that threshold, but didn't realize it. So it wasn't until several years later when they did some more surveys and found that the abalone population wasn't recovering, that they realized they'd fallen below that critical threshold that would allow them to naturally recover, which is why it is necessary for projects to do things like breed abalone and get them back out there. So just today, we got our new batch from Puget Sound Restoration Fund. So I'm super, super excited. Here they are. You can see that there's a lot of stuff in the tank with them. When they're very little, they eat benthic diatoms, so single cell algae that grow on the bottom, which unfortunately to the uninitiated, it looks like just gunk on the bottom of the tank. Even to me, it just looks like gunk on the bottom of the tank, but it is useful and important gunk. These guys are so recently arrived that some of them are still clinging to the labels that they came with that tagged which family each group was in. So tracking the genetics and the parentage of them is very important for making sure that what you get back out there is a very diverse group and genetically diverse group. So They arrived today, and we'll keep them until they do the outplant next, usually it's April or May. The ones that we had this last year are all now out and in the wild now. Hopefully they'll grow up, and it will take another 5 or so years until they can be able to reproduce and start reestablishing the population. And this project is looking very successful. This tank is pretty awesome. Moving the aerator so you can see. In here, they are a much bluer color than the other ones. Sometimes that's related to diet, sometimes it's related to genetics. They're just really gorgeous. It doesn't come across in the video as well as it does in person, so it'll be really great when you can come in and see it for yourselves. It will be really exciting to have people come in and see them. And this year, they are extra big and thriving. They're going to be really visible. And I'm going to reverse you a little bit again here. I'm going to walk out so you can get kind of a look at our conservation lab. So this is one of our newer exhibits. We started this as part of the ALEA project with the aim of really being able to focus on bringing the projects that we're working on to the public, and to also be able to bring really positive messaging about solutions. And that even though we do have a lot of problems, focusing on what groups, agencies, people, organizations are doing to find those solutions and have that hopeful kind of take on problems, to really make people feel like they are empowered to get out there and participate and do something. All right. Do we have any questions? Should we see the abalone again?
If anybody wants to ask questions of Allie, go ahead and put them in the chat box and I'll read them out. So there's a question, Allie, from Diane Baxter. How old were the ones that you just released?
They had been with us for almost a year, and they were a couple of different age groups when they came in, but I think most of them were about a year old when they came in. So they would have been about 2 years old at release, and they reproduced between ages 5 to 7.
Great. We have a comment from Karen DiLorenzo saying she loves the conservation lab. Great addition to the exhibit. And Jamie Montague says, I started the original abalone project and just want to say how wonderful it is to see it evolving. PTMSC is the best. Ruth Ross asked, how do they evaluate outcomes in the program?
Great question. So they go back down, so there'll be at least to specific sites that have been selected, and then divers return to those sites, and before they are released, we paint the abalone with a little tiny tag, and that way you can tell who is a released abalone. So divers go back down and they look and they count and they see if they're seeing survivalship of the released abalone. And then what eventually you would hope in another 5 years or so is that you would also start finding juveniles without tags that would be signs of a wild generation or population. And it's great to hear from people who love the project, and also from Jamie, because indeed, starting the abalone project here was a really great thing, and I'm so excited that we're still working with it. And somebody else asked about Puget Sound Restoration Fund, I think, and Puget Sound Restoration Fund is the organization that runs a variety of programs, including abalone hatchery. They do a lot of Olympia oyster hatchery and restoration work, and they're also working with kelp these days. It's a really cool organization to look into.
Can you see the other questions, Allie, or you want me to read them off?
They kind of flashed by on my screen.
Okay, so Jenna Kinghorn says, how long does an abalone typically live?
I am not entirely sure, Jenna. I have heard around 25, but I'm not too sure. I think we know the age of reproduction. I don't know if we have really great data at maximum age.
And then Diane Baxter asks, who are their primary predators at the size that you release the abalone?
Rockfish, sculpin, otters can just go through huge numbers of them. Sea otters, I don't think the river's otters go after them. Crabs apparently are a big risk factor for the small ones, and octopus. This is our only species of abalone up in this area, which is why we're so attached to them. California has like 7. I'm so jealous. We have the northern or the pinto abalone, and it's our only one, so we got to take good care of it.
Okay, just a couple more questions and we'll move on. So Linda Smith asked, how many abalone are there in the lab right now?
Oh, they just arrived today, so I haven't entered all of the numbers into the spreadsheet because they only came at 1 o'clock. There's about 300 in each tank, so just shy of 900.
And the last question is, we heard that the Marine Science Center piloted this model. How many other aquariums are using this model of raising abalone, if you know?
Well, I am not entirely sure. I know that Puget Sound Restoration Fund would like to have a lot more satellite hatcheries that are able to assist with growing out the abalone while they focus on the more difficult pelagic larval phases. That even the benthic larvae, they have a more specialized diet, but that'd be a question for them.
Now, the pinto abalone was listed on the endangered species list in 2018, and since then Puget Sound Restoration Fund has ramped up their initiative, and they plan to take small marine science centers like ours. We've formed a collaborative of marine science centers, and so probably to start with about 10 small marine science centers around Puget Sound, Peter.
Thank you, Janine. That's super helpful. And we're going to move on to Marley, who's going to talk about the second highlight in the annual report featured, which is about the Octopus Learning Project. Marley.
Hi, everyone. Let's see, just waiting. Okay, my name is Marley. I am the aquarium educator and one of 4 AmeriCorps members serving at PTMSC. This past year, I had the pleasure of working with Allie to care for our giant Pacific octopus named Eleonora. We also worked closely with Florian Granner, a marine cinematographer who was working on the Octopus Learning Project. Florian was mainly documenting the development of the connection between Eleonora and her caregivers, as well as her progression in solving different puzzles. So to that note, octopuses are incredibly intelligent and require frequent activity, toys, changes in their environment, things like that, in order to stay healthy. So Allie and I implemented a pretty rigorous enrichment program that coincided with Eleonora's activity level, which meant that some days she would get 2 or 3 toys in a day, and other days she wouldn't get anything if she didn't have the interest for it. Some of these toys had bits of food inside them. Usually it was a bit of clams, shrimp, or fish, and many of the toys were also frozen. Eleonora was always extra interested in objects that were frozen or even had little ice cubes in them, so we would freeze different shaped ice cubes sometimes. So I have today an example of one of her puzzle feeders, and octopuses are really intelligent, but they don't automatically know how to solve complex toys. It's a learning progression. So this toy here was one of Eleonora's frequent puzzle feeders, and we started out with a pretty simple way of giving her food. So I have Swedish fish today to show you. But basically we would load this toy by putting food inside the centerpiece, and started Eleonora with just the basic toy itself. She just had to reach in, grab the piece of fish out, and that was it. And then we later progressed to same thing, filling the toy, and then afterwards, screwing the end in so that she would have to unscrew the end to get the fish or reach in. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little window right here. So then finally, we added a plastic sleeve that spins. So the final hardest step of this specific puzzle feeder is to line up these two holes here so that she could reach in and grab the fish that way. So we have a number of different toys. Yes, it is a dog toy. We have lots of different dog toys. Her favorite food tended to be clams or a live Dungeness crab. So we did sometimes give her live crabs to keep her hunting nice and sharp. Eleanor arrived at PTMSC with an arm span of just over 2 feet-ish, and she was released after 11 months with an arm span of over 8 feet. So she grew very well. She was very healthy, and was released just off the pier at Fort Worden State Park in the hopes that she would find a male and reproduce. And it's not really possible to know if she did effectively mate and lay eggs, but we can know for sure that she did make a positive impact on the PTMSC community. So during her stay at PTMSC, she had an important role in our mission of inspiring conservation of the Salish Sea. She gave visitors the opportunity to experience the unexpected intelligence and also charisma of an invertebrate that is living right in our waters. Any visitor or volunteer or student who had the chance to spend time watching Eleonora often walked away with a stronger drive to protect our marine ecosystems. And in this way, she was truly an ambassador for the Salish Sea and helped PTMSC promote its conservation and promote our message. So with all of that being said, we have yet another poll for you all about this here puzzle feeder. So in this, go ahead and pick the option for the reason of why we have puzzle feeders like this. We'll just give it a couple of minutes.
Marley, do you want to take questions while people are filling out the poll?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me just pull up the chat. Let's see. Laura Tucker asked, is this something designed for octopus learning or adapted by PTMSC? This is a widely used way of engaging octopuses in any aquarium that keeps octopuses. Because they're so intelligent, they only are really able to be so happy and healthy in captivity with constant stimulation. So our regimen was pretty rigorous for Eleonora, but it varies place to place, but in general, any place with a captive octopus is going to have enrichment activities similar to this one. Did Eleonora ever eat any of her tank mates from Jenna Kinghorn? Yes, she did. So we only placed animals in there that we were either intending as food or knew that they were not in danger. So the ones that are not in danger are, for example, Pinky the sea star was a roommate of Eleonora while she was in the tank, and Eleonora was not going to go after a sea star. But she did eat some adult pollock, which were in there as a form of enrichment for Eleonora, that she could hunt and catch those fish, and she did eat some of those. Karen De Lorenzo said, are we going to get another octopus for this season? We would love to continue working with octopuses. We don't have any current plans to go out and get another giant Pacific octopus. We're hoping to continue working with the red Pacific octopuses, which are a little bit smaller and easier with our tank setup. So I do hope that we can continue working down that road, but we don't have any current plans to go out and collect quite yet. Let's see, from Peter, what was the most surprising thing that Eleonora did while she was at PTMSC? I don't know about the most surprising thing. Honestly, the whole entire experience was very interesting to see her personality grow. I think a couple of the most fun things for me were seeing her facial recognition. So octopuses are very good at recognizing different faces, even through their tank and across the room. And she did have a different reaction to her caregivers compared to people walking up to her tank that she didn't know. And she seemed to get extra excited with younger kids visiting her tank, which was always fun. All right, so for this poll, yeah, most of you got it. The correct answer is E, all of the above. It is definitely also fun for the husbandry staff working with Eleonora to see her solve these puzzles, absolutely. Of course, the biggest one is definitely working to keep Eleonora's well-being, but definitely it was fun to show this off for visitors as well when they were seeing Eleonora solve her puzzles. So there's a couple more questions. Liesl, do we have time for more questions or should we move?
We actually are 2 minutes ahead of schedule, so if you want to take those and then we'll go to the video.
Great. So is Eleonora on this Zoom? Man, I wish. She is hopefully happily underneath our pier. Did Eleonora ever try to climb out of her tank? So she never tried to escape her tank. We would open the lid to play with her and give her toys and things like that. And she did increasingly get more comfortable with her arms being out of the water and would occasionally flop some arms over the side. But we were very careful to not really give her the opportunity to explore leaving her tank. Did she seem to have a sense of humor? Sometimes, yes. We would open the lid of the tank to play with her and she would come at us with her siphon and jet extreme amounts of water at us. And I am fully convinced that it was a positive response because she did it while she was playing with us. Let's see. A question, was Eleonora tagged somehow to track her when she was released? It's not honestly possible to tag an octopus with the technology that we have. They are so, they have so many degrees of freedom when they're moving around that I'm not sure how we would go about implanting some sort of tracking device. And those devices also usually transmit through air, not through the water. So turtle or a whale or something like that, it transmits when they surface. And octopuses don't need to surface since they have gills, not lungs.
Last question.
Yeah, last question. What is the lifespan? Giant Pacific octopuses have a longer octopus lifespan of just 3 to 5 years. Most octopuses are even shorter than that. But with that, we have a short video for you all with some footage provided generously by Florian Grinner. So enjoy this video of Eleonora.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Carlson. I'm the Citizen Science Coordinator. And after this beautiful video of Eleonora, I get to talk to you about some of the things we've been doing with the Marine Mammal Stranding Network. And I am going to share a PowerPoint, and I hope you all hear me. So here we go. Can you see that?
No, not yet, Betsy. This is Liesl. We can hear you fine, though.
All right. Just let me know when it's up. Or if I need to do something else.
Well, you're sharing your screen, right?
Is Brian still sharing his screen?
Betsy, are you trying to share your screen and it's not
I am
working?
trying, and the
Okay.
message is host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay.
Uh-oh. I'm not sharing my screen, I don't think.
Try again, Betsy.
Oh, that looks much better. Here we go.
There we go.
You get to see my messy desktop. Oh, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So not all of the work that the Port Townsend Marine Science Center does is in classrooms or in the aquarium. We actually have the opportunity to respond to stranded marine mammals. So the Port Townsend Marine Science Center is a member of the Stranding Network, and that is organized by NOAA, the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration. The person who coordinates the Marine Mammal Stranding Network for our area actually used to be a AmeriCorps at the Marine Science Center. Her name is Kristen Wilkinson. So we have an agreement with NOAA, and I wanted to just point out that Washington State is actually is very different than Oregon and California as far as the number of stranding network responding groups that monitor the shorelines and respond to stranded marine mammals. So Port Townsend on this map is the pink in the middle. This is just Puget Sound, but you get a sense of the variety of organizations that are part of the Marine Mammal Stranding Network. And we go out and we collect data on the animals. Sometimes we'll do a necropsy, sometimes we just we protect the animal from anybody bothering it or dogs going up to it so that the animal has a better chance of survival. Most of our marine mammals that end up in the stranding that we respond to as stranded animals are harbor seal pups or harbor seals, but sometimes we get some other animals. And I'm going to talk to you about our elephant seal. This elephant seal is one that we've been able to, we've received some funding for, and we are going to we have turned this animal into just a skeleton, and we are going to create an educational project called An Elephant in the Classroom or Elephant in the Room. And it's, the goal is to have the skeleton set up in a way so that students can manipulate it and actually create the elephant seal in their classroom. And Mandy's going to tell you a little bit more how that's going in the future. But this animal washed ashore. It's a male elephant seal. It washed ashore Halloween in 2018, and we worked on it all last year to get it ready. This is on Marrowstone Island, and it was pretty hard to get to, but we had good neighbors and volunteers from Marrowstone community that helped us to work with it. So first thing we did was we went out and did an assessment, collected our data. You can see Mandy in the upper right writing down the information. We were looking at it. It's a male. We were trying to see if there was any kind of human impact. A lot of the marks you see around its neck are just from battling with other elephant seals. And then we did a necropsy. So as part of the necropsy, which is usually accessed from the underside, we had to roll this great big thing over. It was 13 feet long, and elephant seals can weigh up to 4.5 to 5,000 pounds. They're really big. What we did, we went through, we did the necropsy, we buried a lot of the remains, and then we also buried the bones so that we could save them for when we could get them off of the island. We couldn't move these bones up the hill. It was just too steep. So one of our volunteer families, Bruce and Andrea Carlson, came out. They helped with Bruce's skiff, or their skiff, and got in at the right tide. We came on up the shore, and we were able to load up all of the bones in carefully wrapped plastic packaging and put it onto his skiff. And then he and his friend were able to drive it around Marrowstone and put it onto a boat ramp where they trailered it to the Marine Science Center. And if you notice, Bruce is wearing his pre-COVID respirator because it's not the most positively fragrant experience to work around a dead marine animal. So we really appreciate his work. Here they are taking it off of the trailer and just, being able to tow it, and he motored it over to the AmeriCorps, who were, looks like they're posing for a photo, but they are waiting to receive the animal and unwrap it. And if you see the netting that's there on the floating dock, we unwrapped it, and then we tied it up in that net, sewing it in carefully so we wouldn't lose any of the bones. And then we were able to just drop it over the side of the floating dock and let nature do what it does best, and that was to start to clean the skeleton. And most of the tissue was taken off by the organisms in the water. And then a little while later, we pulled it up and hosed it off. And just to get, make sure all the little crabs and things were getting back into the water, and all the little fish. And then Mandy and I boiled up the bones. We cooked them to help to sterilize them, get rid of some of the oils. And Mandy is going to tell you a little bit more about what happens next as far as the preserving of these bones and getting them ready for taking them into the classroom. So that's all I have, and pass it on to Mandy.
Hi guys. So that last photo you see that Betsy showed you is what one of the processes was. Basically, once we got all of the bones boiled and all of the gunk off of them, we then had to process them so that they were strong enough to handle being handled by kids in education programs. So we did what is called consolidation. We used some really strong museum grade resin, and we basically lathered all of the bones in that so that they'd be really, really strong and not so fragile. And then right when we finished that process, that's about when our work from home orders came in. And so in order to keep this project going and to continue working on it, I brought some of the bones home. So I'm here coming live from my shared home office, and we have a table of elephant seal bones. So here I have just his two back rear flippers over here, and a few of our sternum bones. So this is his right flipper and this is his left. I have it here so you can kind of compare. You can see the left flipper is completely articulated. And then here on the right, what we're doing now and what I've been doing while working from home is casting the bones. So basically we're creating replicas of the real bones so that since the future of this project is to be with kids handling them, we want to make sure to do that with some of these smaller bones that are a little bit more fragile maybe, or easier to get lost. So this is kind of a huge experiment for us. Basically, we've been experimenting, you can see, with 2 different types of moldings. So this one is basically just silicone. So the silicone you'd buy in a tube. And we can create a mold with that. And then this is like it's called liquid rubber. And so we've been experimenting to see which kind of mold creates a better cast of our bone. And then we've been experimenting with different types of resin to see which replica we like the best. And so as you can tell, it's an experiment to get the perfect bone, but here's 2 bones. I don't know if you guys can tell which one's real or not. It's also just really cool to be able to see these things together. So one of my favorite parts is getting the ankle joint together. It's a lot of really small bones that it's quite a process to be able to get them to stick together and figure out where they actually fit. So you can see in between some of these bones in there, we have something called museum putty that we've been using, and it's been really helpful to keep them all together. And so that's about all I have for you guys here. Hopefully in the future, we'll have a really neat education program that kids will be able to put together the skeleton in the classroom and see like how cool these animals are, and hopefully that will help to inspire them to conserve them as well. So that's it for me, unless anyone has questions. It's back to you, Jenny.
Hi. Wow, that was very cool. Does anybody have any questions for Mandy before she?
We do have a poll we could run.
Yeah, run a poll because we missed those polls. Come on, come on.
And a poll. Let's see if we can. Here it is. Okay, so this is a question. The Port Townsend Marine Science Center Marine Mammal Stranding Network gets calls about very sick-looking northern elephant seals. So what is the most common reason that we get calls for northern elephant seals? And let's see. So I think we'll eventually see the results of that. Northern elephant seals are, they're a conservation success story. Oh, bravo, well done. All right. Yes, mostly if we get calls for a northern elephant seal, if it's injured, sometimes that happens, but mostly it's because they've hauled out, they're on the beach, and they are molting their entire outer skin. Every year they lose their outer skin and their fur. It doesn't look very comfortable, and I'm pretty sure they really just want to be left alone, and that's what we try to do. So if you do see a northern elephant seal that looks really scabby and looks horrible, there's a really good chance that's very normal, and it's just going through its molting process. So there you go. Well done, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Betsy. And there's a couple of questions. One from Karen D. Will the kids be working with any real bones or all just casts?
I can answer really quick. We're just casting the little bones so that, because the little bones we're afraid of losing those, but the bigger bones they'll be using the real animal, most of the bigger bones, but the little ones we are going to send the casts of.
Okay, and there's another question about how did you figure out the assembly of the elephant seal bones? So I'm guessing the ankle joint?
Yeah, that's a good Mandy one. She's the puzzle solver.
Mandy, what's the secret?
Yeah. It's really complicated. We have these really cool books. If you guys have heard of Lee Post, he has several. So you can see the Bone Builder's Notebook, or he has lots like geared towards pinniped. So that's a huge resource. It's also just a puzzle. So like messing around with the pieces, looking at these sketches he has, which are like helpful, but not really like all the way helpful. And then just playing with it and figuring out, like, once you get it, especially with like the ankle, it's kind of fun. You can see where there's grooves and where it works. And then once you get it, then you can add, then I could add like the next part, the first part of the finger bones. And then you're like, oh, it is right. Like, I got it. And then it's also been helpful down in Northern California. There's been a small marine science center down there that just articulated a northern elephant seal too. So I was able to reach out to them and get some photos of some of the different bones that they have and how they have them put together. So it's a huge puzzle, and it's also not just been me. Betsy's been there, and we've had several volunteers that are masters at puzzles, and they've been a huge help too.
I think that's a fun message, that science is a large degree puzzling things out. So
Yes,
yes.
definitely.
All right. And we have one more. What was the cause of death, or do we know that?
We did do a necropsy, and there was nothing in, like, there was not a conclusive cause of death. He did have some, it looked like he got banged up maybe. And so maybe some larger animals, like a killer whale, was trying to come at him, but there's really nothing came back on internally or from any of the labs that could tell us like a conclusive reason for death.
Got it. Got it. I think with those three examples, I'm really, I hope you can see that the power of the intersection and the interweaving of those three core competencies of our exhibits and our citizen science and the educational initiatives really is the core strength, the strength and the foundation of the organization, marrying all three of those and having them inform one another. So something that starts out as a citizen science project, like the abalone, turns into an exhibit. Something that is an education, is a citizen science project, turns into an education program, like the elephant seal in the room. And I want to credit Diane Quinn, our program director, for coming up with that concept and the name. It's just really, it's actually elephant seal in the classroom. So I thought that was very, very clever, and she is a delight. So if I stand for questions overall for 2019 or beyond, if people have questions, I can see them in the chat. We've got about another 5 minutes in our hour. Will we ever be able to docent again? Yes, yes. Yes, you will. We're working on the phase 3 plan right now, and hopefully we'll be finalizing that and sharing that with you. I think Gabrielle is going to be back in touch with volunteers, if she hasn't already, asking you for your feedback. Hopefully all of you participated in the survey that we sent out earlier about participating in programs. We're going to be following your lead and visitors, our supporters' lead in terms of specifically what we're doing, but we will be following phase 3 guidelines to the nth degree and making sure that everyone is safe and that our internal protocols are as rigorous as they can be to protect all of you and all of our staff and AmeriCorps volunteers. Wow, the questions are coming in. So I think Liesl, if you would help field the questions, that would be great.
Yeah, we have questions about the future, which is not surprising. Folks are interested to know about the status of the state parks and the pier, and if we're having a capital campaign, and what makes you hopeful about the future. Maybe all of those are part of
Yeah.
one question.
Well, one of the things, we'll start with the hopeful. And I think that one of the testaments of why the Marine Science Center is so great is that we've taken the really extraordinarily challenging time over the last few months and grown a strength that we've wanted to grow for a very long time in our digital format, and figuring out, trying some things, taking some risks really with what the Marine Science Center can do online, because we are an in-person, huggy organization. That was not a natural first step, but we've wanted to do that for a long time. And I think we're having some success with it and taking a few more risks. So hopefully you're enjoying this, and would love your feedback about this as a format for this annual meeting. And so I am hopeful that this last period is really about helping us understand how to reach a much broader audience and strengthening those tools and our skill set at being able to do that. And I'm also hopeful that COVID has really helped us understand, I hope, our intersection and our interrelationship with nature, that we are not apart from it, but we are part of it, and that we need to take care of it and respect it, because how it goes is how we go. And so I hope that is sending a bigger message about the interdependence of life, and also the extraordinary importance of real science and valuing real science, funding real science, and citizens becoming more and more engaged in real science. So that all points to the future of the Marine Science Center. And while largely we're focused on this online learning format and expanding that tool, and number two, looking at our re-emerging plan, our what we're calling the Creating the New Normal plan. We are also trying to move as much as we might what happens with facilities down the road. Given COVID, given the likely economic forecast, I think that all gets pushed out much further. We don't know exactly. I wish I had a crystal ball, then fundraising would be a lot easier, I think. But we still are marching forward. We know we need to expand a bit, and we know that at some point in the next 70 years or so, the pier will come down, and we will need to move forward. But from right now, we're just taking baby steps and exploring our options around facility.
Janine, there were a couple questions about finances and how we're doing. I think people are expressing a lot of care and concern and hope for our stability. And could you speak to that a bit?
I am deeply touched and honored to be part of this community. We are stronger financially than ever. We are ahead of financial projections from our original budget right now. And that is largely due and thanks to you, our community, and we are deeply, deeply appreciative. You'll see in when you read through and enjoy the annual report, you see that last year was a significantly positive year for us, in large part due to the bequests that I mentioned. But this year we fully expect that the next couple of quarters are going to be harder hit. But right now we are ahead of projections. And so we're thrilled. And we are, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, rather than taking a step back and taking a break, everybody here at the Marine Science Center has doubled down and leaned in and been full force ahead. And as Dennis said, we miss you too. We really,
Yeah, I think the final notes from the chat box are expressions of love and care and enthusiasm for being able to continue our mission together. There were some questions about being contacted. Again, as Janine said earlier, Gabrielle is going to be reaching out to all the volunteers to let them know when we're going to be phasing in opening and how that's going to work. So just look for communications from Gabrielle. And I also want to make sure everyone realized the annual report. I put the link in the chat again, and it will be on our website probably tomorrow immediately, since it's ready for viewing. So let your friends know.
yes.
Any final words, Janine, since it is just a little past 5 and we're
Yeah,
need
we
to wrap
love
it up.
you and we miss you, and we will be back together soon. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you. Ryan's going to end the meeting for all of us. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.